Because one of the things I tell people about you all the time is that you help people transition from "you're amazing, you're great" to regular life. And what a weird shock that's got to be. It was a huge shock for me when the very first second radio station I worked at, when it closed down and I had to go make bagels, because I was like, oh, I used to be somebody.
I was going to ask you that. So like how famous were you when you were on the radio?
I mean, in Birmingham, at least people who showed up knew who I was, and I didn't have to pay for a lot of things. Like it was such a great golden era of free tickets and free food and free bar tabs, and it was really cool. So on a local scene, it was very small scale, but it was big to me at 24, 25, thinking like, oh my God, this is great. And I have a microphone and people have to listen to me. So it was on that scale. For me, it was and here, gigantic.
Yeah. But so something I'm working on in the app right now is a series on identity, on like, how do I separate myself from the athlete and the person, right? And, unfortunately, although fortunately, we just had this incredible experience together as a country to watch Damar Hamlin, like, almost die on the field and somehow, regain consciousness and capacity and everything within a week. But in that moment, you hear everyone talking about, this is not about sports, this is about a person, right? And I think what you experienced is what athletes experience all the time. And I even experienced it, when I left Major League Baseball, this idea that I'm not in the big leagues anymore, right?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Whatever your big leagues is, right? And so I think there are high school athletes out there who know they're not going to be college athletes, who know they're not going to be pro athletes, and they know that their last varsity playoff game, whether it ends in winning a state championship or losing in the first round, that's it for their sport career.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about, like, how do we help all of these athletes understand how to appreciate and cherish that time and actually take the lessons from the field and then take them and apply them to something else and move on and not feel like their best days were behind them.
Yeah. That's a tough one. It's a tough one, especially when you have stepped from that and you're in the next phase, because I don't know, the older we get and it just kind of signals like, oh, new milestone in life. It's a life change. And that's scary because you spent so much time getting established and all of this and all of that. You've built your identity up, and then it's just not gone, but it's entered a different phase. And we all kind of know what it feels like to be not the has-been, but if it's like, oh, so you're not doing it anymore? Well, who's the next person to pay attention to?
Right.
Wow, that's amazing.
But did you feel like, I'm guessing you felt like a has-been right when it was over?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally. Because one of the guys that I didn't really like, who was also at a competitive radio station, he kept going, and he still had the job. And then I'd still see him out. And it was just so painful because I was angry that I didn't have that job anymore.
But it doesn't feel that way now, right?
No, not at all. And plus, like you said, I started looking back. I was doing this. I'm writing kind of a show Bible on blogs that I wrote when I was the morning show host for New Country 97.3. And I do not like new country music, never did, but that was my job at the time. So I wrote blogs every single day where they didn't have any money to promote the station. So they said, all right, you take the van out and you drive it around and you just give people free stuff and meet them. And that's how we're going to get the word out. I'm like, whatever. So for a couple of years, that's what I did. And I had to write a blog about everywhere I went and took pictures of people. And I recently uncovered them and started reading them and totally forgot all this stuff I had done. Had no recollection of all these parades I was in. I went to just crazy things. It was nuts. So I'm reading back through it, and I have been working with one of my friends who's a writer and just plotting out the good days of the things that how crazy it was. And it was really fun to read those and think, man, those were the great days. I'm glad they're gone. I want to make some others.
Right. But so another thought that I have on this though is that like I think people talk a lot about like moving on and saying, I'm not just an athlete, I'm a person, right? And for you, I'm not just a DJ, I'm a person, right? But you are a DJ, right? Like
Yeah.
you're a DJ whether you're on the radio or not, and you always,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Hmm.
why it's fun just like hanging out with my kids and like saying things that make them laugh because like some of that is never going to leave you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It was the foundation for what I'm doing now. If I hadn't been that, I don't think I would have been a voice actor at a recording studio.
Yeah.
That just wouldn't have been in the cards. I might still be making bagels, but yeah, I wouldn't have been here. And
So
just those strange life changes. Yeah.
well, but so I think there's something about like you don't have to say I'm not an athlete anymore, right? Like you don't
That's
have to
true.
say I'm not a DJ anymore, right? Like there's something about that that you can always be proud of and that can always be a part of you instead of saying I'm letting go of this and becoming something else. Although
Yeah.
I was at a conference one time and someone said to me, you look formerly athletic. And I thought that was supposed to be a compliment, but I
Thanks.
think that's a good way to describe me as formerly athletic.
At least it didn't come up and go, Jesus, you look like shit. Oh, thanks. What
Yeah.
happened to your playing days?